Alright, we are live, 6/23/2024. This is the Ips Evening Deprogram. And this is Fepe Akbar. Allergic to Bullshit featuring Lean Dion. Phones are open. 563-999-3664. You can call in if you have any questions, concerns, comments, criticisms, complaints, or anything else that you find relevant to this conversation. I just uploaded a video a little while ago about the connections that we've made between Donald Trump, the Joker, and Robert De Niro as it pertains to his court battles, and every one of these court appearances seems to be attended by some kind of drama outside. Joker 2 being filmed, a guy setting himself on fire, Robert De Niro exhibiting extreme TDS. But I put it all together in a succinct, about 12-minute video here to explain how these connections exist and what they mean, and the deeper significance of Robert De Niro acting out as he did, because it's really not what it seems. It's a merging of real and fake. And so the video is actually called Metascript Connections. Metascript Connections, Joker, Robert De Niro, and Donald Trump. So if you subscribe to my main channel, you can get that video. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Main story right now. Man, this is a good time to be a crisis actor if you're looking for a side hustle. Florida family is suing NASA after a piece of space debris crashes through their home. If you remember, there was a story about a couple months ago about Florida. Some family had a piece of space junk fell through their roof. We watched the video. We called it fake because obviously it was fake. But anyway, they are now suing. It says space debris is a real issue because of the increase in space traffic in recent years. The attorney said, "My clients are seeking adequate compensation to account for the stress and impact this event had on their lives." Deep impact? Is that some kind of a pun? The 19-year-old son of the homeowner was in the house at the time of the incident but was unharmed. But they did say here, in their claim against NASA, which was filed last month, they seek damages, including non-insured property damage loss, emotional and mental anguish, and other damages. So if you could sue NASA for mental anguish because something punched a hole in your roof, for one, you could sell that thing on eBay and pay for the damages, but they're claiming emotional damages. Like, what could we claim? Like, you guys brainwashed me to believe in moon landings. You know how long it took to undo that damage? My group therapy on YouTube, late night conversations, just thinking it through, debating, and then the fallout you have to deal with when you break away from the conventions of moon landings, space, and all this stuff. It's very damaging, I would say, emotionally, and I think we deserve compensation. And how much do they make a day? NASA, they rake in billions of dollars a year. I'm sure they can afford to pay out a couple settlements here. There are a couple class action settlements. Mental anguish for space junk. Like, I feel mentally anguished by this. Like, I actually, you know what? We should start wearing helmets. Just say we're so paranoid about space junk that we got to wear helmets. And then we can sue NASA. People ought to sue for climate angst. I don't know where you would direct that lawsuit. Isn't there some lawsuit going against some climate activists are seeking like reparations or something? I know there's something, reparations fund for climate change. The case for climate reparations. Climate justice as climate reparations. Anyway, these individuals feel aggrieved and they're getting paid for it. The agency said in a blog post in April that a space object recovered from their home was involved in a 2021 operation. Now, I remember this one. They dropped 5,800 pounds of batteries at that time, and I was worried it was going to hit a whale because nobody cares about the oceans anymore. Now it's all about space. But I remember thinking that this is obviously dangerous. The idea that they would just drop it on the earth. You couldn't launch it to the sun. I guess you don't have enough power. It would be expensive, so they just drop it. The agency said it believes the material landed in Florida. And it was NASA flight support equipment, and it was orbiting for a couple of years before burning up in the atmosphere. but not all of it, apparently. So again, the headline is Florida family suing NASA. NASA remains committed to responsibly operating in low Earth orbit and mitigating as much risk as possible to protect the people on Earth when space hardware must be released. They said NASA would be held responsible for damage caused by its space debris in any other country under the international agreement known as the Space Liability Convention. So they are liable for this. Now, I'm pretty sure, and I'll have to double check this, I'm pretty sure that NASA dropped this, yep, 3/11. I remember this date. A cargo pallet full of aging batteries was released from the International Space Station on 3/11/2021. A piece of that metal that tore through a family's home was space junk from the ISS. So the space junk was dropped on 3/11/2021. I remember noting that date thinking this has got to be some indicator about what's to come, about after COVID, the next thing's going to be space wars, space AIDS, and space viruses are gestating on the ISS right now, and who knows what kind of bacteria. You know, if you go on the ISS, don't use the plasticware, and don't look up astroplastic. Okay, let's see who has arrived in chat here. Elephant Tusks, 3 up, 3 down, Zinvillis, Diana South, HBIC, Pete Trippa, AJ206, Mango Penguins, Ears Up, Oh Sure. Mazel, Mark Johnson from the UK, awesome. We're very consistent these days. I'm able to make it here every evening. I'm actually here all day, and soon we'll be doing more routine live streams in the morning. I'm working on some video content, mostly storyboarding right now, because I'm going to bring in a cinematographer for a couple of hours to do some work here, but I want to have a number of scripts so I can produce 5 or 6 polished videos out of that. All right, let's continue. So on 3/11/2021, the ISS dropped a bunch of aging batteries, and one of them hit a home in Florida, and now that family is suing NASA. The date 3/11 is obviously of tremendous significance here. All right, next. John Taylor commented on my post about Witsit Gets It. So I've been following Witsit Gets It. He's a flat earth debater, and he debates against GLERFs. And he argues, I think, in favor of a model, some kind of electromagnetic toroidal field model, something that you can't really test, which is problematic. It's just as bad as a dome. He's not an infinite planar, but that's okay. Now, I listen to his debates, and I hear him cite fallacy after fallacy after fallacy, formal and informal. So I would suggest, or I'd say that nobody on flat Earth, nobody on the flat Earth debate circuit has a better understanding of logical fallacies than Witsit Gets It. Therefore, I contend he cannot honestly believe in chemtrails. So my question is, does he claim these exist? And I tweeted him today, just as a matter of record, Witsit Gets It, do you believe in chemtrails? I want to see if he answers, because he only talks about the flat Earth in relation to the globe Earth, and he gets in these debates. But if he believes in chemtrails, it's a problem for a few reasons, and I want to let him answer before I say why it's a problem. But at a bare minimum, chemtrail belief requires at least half a dozen logical fallacies and dishonest forms of argumentation, including loaded questions, emotional appeals, shifting the burden of proof, moving goalposts, faulty causality, appeals to ignorance, appeals to motive, arguments from incredulity. Now, should he claim that they exist using some or all of these fallacies, then we'll have to ask ourselves why. Why do you recognize these when they're used against your flat Earth model, but you don't recognize them when you employ them yourself? So I don't think it's possible for him to honestly believe in chemtrails. So my thinking here is that if Witsit Gets It claims that airplanes are spraying poisons or altering the weather, then he is doing so dishonestly. He would be a dishonest chemtrail believer, simply because he knows about these logical fallacies. If you're a chemtrail believer, you can be forgiven because you just don't know about the logical fallacies that you accept. You're not aware of them. John Taylor responded, he said, per your expertise, if the crisscrosses across the sky are not chemtrails, then they are exhaust, and that's pollution, and that's okay. So let me deconstruct this, because John Taylor, like many people who are chemtrail believers, cannot take criticism without resorting to personally directed attacks, strawman arguments and mischaracterizations, and moving the goalposts. They cannot actually be honest. So John Taylor first says, if the crisscrosses across the sky are not chemtrails. Okay, well, the crisscrosses are the trails. Now, the trails are known to be condensation trails. Chemtrail believers mislabel these. And the reason why they're crisscrossed is the same reason why the streets in your neighborhood crisscross at what we call intersections. And that's because of flight paths. It's as simple as that. But he goes on to say, if they're not chemtrails, they are exhaust. Nope, that's another misrepresentation. If they're not this mysterious chemical, it must be exhaust. Well, no, it's not exhaust. There's a reason why you only see it at certain altitudes under certain conditions. So no, that's a wrong frame to use. And then he goes on to say, and it must be considered pollution and okay. Now, he's suggesting that because I don't believe in chemtrails, I'm okay with jet exhaust at a minimum. I'm okay with pollution. Well, this was never about pollution. This was about chemical trails. So here he is shifting the subject from chemtrails as a hypothetical to you're okay with pollution because you don't agree with me. You're a bad person overlooking problems because you don't agree with me. So again, John Taylor is a little bit triggered, and he just doesn't know why he believes this, but he believes it, and that's okay. I'm not here to criticize your chemtrail belief. I'm just pointing out that you don't know, and you have to be forgiven for, I guess, your refusal to look at the facts in the matter, and that's okay. You know, we are all entitled to our own opinions, but not our own facts, and chemtrail is just an opinion. But we'll leave it at that. We'll wait for Witsit Gets It to respond. Is he going to respond to this question? Is he going to be able to respond affirmatively? Yes, I believe that they are spraying something. I don't know what it is. Because if he goes there, then we know that, well, here's what it means. It means that he is only studied on this one issue and it's his one agenda, and he's not logically consistent, which suggests that he's not honest. So we'll see. We'll see if he responds. Now, he may not. So if you want to go to my Twitter account and retweet my question, maybe we can put some pressure on him. I just think people need to be held accountable for their claims. And you cannot claim that it's wrong to use logical fallacies if you employ them yourself. And logical fallacies, when you're aware of them, represent a problem for your side. It means that you're having to lie in order to continue to maintain your position. Okay, continuing. Starliner is delayed again. Helium leaks and thruster malfunctions have combined to keep the Boeing Starliner astronauts aboard the ISS for a few more days. Now, I heard they were coming down tomorrow, the 24th, and they're going to land in New Mexico. NASA delayed the return of Starliner's Calypso capsule for the third time and said the next possible return date this Wednesday won't happen. Now they face a 45-day window to bring them back. So they're pushing it forward. Now, unrelated, there's a link on this article to another article, and it says, quote, once in a lifetime explosive event in space expected soon. I know it's not related, but it kind of looks like foreshadowing to me. But now, the reason I bring this up is I didn't know this. Someone mentioned it, but I didn't really catch it. The name of the craft is Calypso. Well, Calypso is the sea nymph in Homer's Odyssey. So if you remember the story, before Homer goes on his journey and fights the Cyclops and the witches, and he goes back and he wins back his kingdom. After all, he fights Poseidon, the Kraken. He goes through all these various ordeals on his way back home. But before he goes, he's trapped for 7 years on an island with Calypso. Now, it's a better deal than what Prometheus got. 7 years chained to a rock where an eagle would come down and eat his liver every day. Odyssey was stranded on an island with a nymph, and for 7 years. So my point of it is the theme here is being stuck, being trapped. And then this is followed by what? ordeals, suggesting that once they're done with their little respite here in space, they're going to have their own little odyssey. And again, the name Odyssey has to do with possibly space odyssey, like 2001: A Space Odyssey. So there's a deeper significance here. And we'll continue to follow this story. Okay, continuing. Jake M says another distraction for the people, just like the supposed submarine that sank near the Titan. Well, yeah, that's interesting to point out because it was on the summer solstice that the Titan went down. And the Titan, the submersible, symbolizes, I believe, the crab, which is Cancer, the sign of Cancer we hit when we go into the summer solstice. And it descended, it was sinking down. And the sinking and the descent actually ties in astrologically to what Cancer represents. Cancer is called the gate of men. And when we enter Cancer, the souls of men descend down into the earth for incarnation. 6 months later, winter solstice, gate of gods, there's the ascent. The idea here, again, I think ties into this idea of the descent into the abyss, or however you want to describe it. And so right now, we have the Gemini twins, the Gemini. During Gemini, this mission launches. We have two astronauts, William. A lot of twinsy stuff, and there was a lot of twinsy stuff with a Challenger, just mentioning. So we have the twinsies up there, going up there as Gemini ends, and we enter into Cancer, and now they're stuck. So during the Titan submersible event, it was like 3 days. We were wondering what's going to happen. So we're suspended. Just like the sun. Solstice means sun stands still. So the sun is suspended for 3 days, as it is on the Southern Cross at the winter solstice. In this case, the crab, crabs move sideways, just suggestive of the sun's stasis. So we're waiting to see what happens. Are they going to survive? Did they make it to the Titanic? Are we going to find them, or are they dead? And they had imploded, kind of like an inverted Challenger explosion. So the 3 days or so of waiting ended with learning that they had died. So here we are now waiting as we enter into Cancer. We just had the solstice, and we're waiting for another group in their capsule, Calypso, to descend. So there's a repeated theme here, and it has disaster written all over it. I mean, Boeing, anything Boeing right now is obviously cursed. In fact, I think Boeing, there was something about Boeing right now, some kind of lawsuit that they're going to have to pay out. Yeah, federal prosecutors recommend criminal charges against Boeing for violating 2021 settlement. Final decision in 2 weeks. And Boeing planes, this has just been a theme since Leave the World Behind. And now they've left the world behind on a Boeing Starliner, and they've had disasters. Leaks, helium leaks, thrusters failing, hard time docking, and now they're stuck. And again, I just bring this up because Calypso adds another level to it. And then we have this story of space junk landing in Florida, punching a hole in a roof, traumatizing the family, and now they're suing NASA, and it turns out it's a piece of junk that was dropped on 3/11/2021. Okay, let's continue here. Mazel says, I survived a Boeing plane ride. Well, Boeing planes are just crisis acting. Like one of them dropped down to near 500 feet, scared some guy. He had a Donnie Darko moment there, and he survived. But this is all script. What I'm suggesting is that no, there's no threat. You're safe on any of these planes, doesn't matter. But the Boeing is being used as some kind of a keyword, code, suggestive of a predicted programming, possibly for what we're experiencing right now. That's what it looks like to me. Boeing CEO was asked to resign earlier this week by Josh Hawley. Now, didn't their previous CEO get like a $33 million separation pay? Yeah, David Calhoun announced in March he's going to leave the company, and Boeing approved a pay package of $33 million. Disgruntled investors take aim at $33 million payday. Right, well, 33 is code, order out of chaos, so we're waiting for the chaos. And speaking of chaos, if you look on the screen, this is a graphic. What you're seeing is an asteroid headed towards the Earth. And for GLRFs, For NASA believers, I just want you to know that what you're looking at is CGI. It's not real. You got to tell them because they're reality impaired. If they see anything with space, their eyes glaze over, their jaws drop, and they just like, we're ready to believe. We want to believe. So this is fake. But what you're seeing here is an artist's interpretation of what it would look like if we had a planet killer asteroid about to hit the Earth. And this one is labeled Auto Hoax 2024. Auto Hoax 2024 is a world stage killer. It's like a planet killer, but this one is aimed at the internal concept of the world. And it will be arriving here in a few months. Just a heads up, I'm not going to give anyone a specific date, but you're all a part of this. All right, moving on. A family whose home was hit seeks damages from NASA. $80,000. That's what they're asking, $80,000. Now, how much do you think we deserve for having been brainwashed and then having to unbrainwash ourselves? We ought to send them a bill. NASA sued after family. Now, this is another. These articles are all reiterating this here, but after space junk projectile crashes into Florida home. Well, it wasn't Elon's. Now, another guy got a piece of space junk from Elon Musk. Mystery debris found on North Carolina trail came from SpaceX craft. This is 2 days ago. Now, here's the reason I'm mentioning this. On 3/11/2021, I said this was the biggest piece of trash ever dropped off the ISS in history. It was 2.9 tons. And I said this is significant. The date 3/11 is suggestive that this is the beginning of an agenda. And the agenda correlates to the pandemic. 3/11/2020 virus pandemic. 3/11/2021 space junk. Well, here's a correlation. Think Elon Musk, leading purveyor of space junk. Leading provider of space junk. But he's also the lead source of mind junk, mind viruses, the mental pandemic of right-wing hate all over X. They've connected these themes. So this is another agenda that I had pretty much said was being introduced, and the date was very telling. And now here we are, a few years later, and that news story has a follow-up. Okay, continuing here. Jennifer Reeve says, I want a refund for my college astronomy class. See, now you're thinking. And I had brought this up before. This is when I put out the book, The Flat Earth Activist. I had to republish it. What do you all think? I had published this book called The Flat Earth Activist, and Amazon pulled it. They said I had too many words that weren't words. Like, they had pulled it. They had said it was a quality control issue. But we were making up words. Like, you can't put glurf in a book, or glober, or globe eggs. I mean, we had a whole lexicon. But The Flat Earth Activist was a book just essentially suggesting that if we're going to have a debate, we need to have an honest debate. And here are some tactics to deal with the blowback we're getting for people who are just incredulous and want to shut you down. But when I had put this book out a few years ago, and I'd said in there that one of the things that could catalyze some kind of a quote movement would be if we had said to people, you have reasons to be outraged. They're probably hiding land, and if they've lied at all about the size of the globe or the amount of land on it, then all of their models are false. Their climate models have to be redone. And what's more, every cent you paid, every college loan you took out for a class based on corrupted science, you deserve your money back. Go get your diploma, go to the school and get your money back for all of your astrology classes. I mean, astronomy, excuse me. I had already made this case in that book. I was like listing all the things that would make people angry when they find out how much they've been lied to. And NASA's made of money. They're made of money. Space junk hits near your house, claim that you're traumatized, and you got an $80,000 claim. Jacques says, banned a book for too many fake words. That's hilarious. Yeah, absolutely. They had banned it, and the thing was, I think it was targeted because here's what happened, little history. When this channel started, I was working full-time as a cashier, and then on my breaks I was writing this book, and then I published it, and I read it on YouTube, chapter by chapter with the link to buy the book. The royalties added up to where after a month I was able to quit my job and go on YouTube full time. I was living off royalties, and then super chats came in, and I was living off that. And it was a pretty nice arrangement until Amazon saw what I was doing and they yanked the book. But I may have to update it because it's been a few years. Miss Psionic Charlatan says Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce is an unreadable tome full of made up gibberish words. Bet Amazon don't cancel James Joyce. Oh, yeah. It was 100% targeted. How did they even find it? Okay, let's move on. Confirmed strange debris found littered across western North Carolina is a part of some spacecraft that SpaceX sent up there. SpaceX retrieves space junk from farmer. Space debris from SpaceX Dragon capsule crashes into the mountain. A 90-pound hunk of space junk, says one property owner. Space junk raining from the sky. Who's responsible when it hits the Earth? Now, these stories are all new. SpaceX, Amazon satellites make the problem of space junk more pressing. Trash from satellites. Really, anything that's been launched, that's a problem. Now, JAXA is smart. Japan. They're making wooden CubeSats. So they're certainly going to burn up in the atmosphere. But this is an agenda. The agenda is pretty obvious. It has to do with demonizing rich capitalists like Musk. We can't let rich people have too much power and influence because he can corrupt our shared commons, our shared spaces, cyberspace, low Earth orbit, outer space. And then it ties into our inner space in the sense of, mind viruses and also physical viruses, our circulation, as his mind viruses convince people to reject the injectable Eucharist. All by design. A Japanese scientist wants to send wooden satellites into space. NASA is now sending wooden satellites into space. So US and Japanese space agencies are teaming up for wooden satellites. This wooden cube is a satellite being sent into space. Again, this is all because of space environmentalism, because we care about space environmentalism, and nobody cares about the ocean or the whales anymore. And I say this because following COVID, there was something like 57 trillion tons of PPE dumped in the ocean, resulting in an ocean level rise of like a millimeter. And all of that PPE and COVID-related junk tossed in the ocean was put there, ironically, by environmentalists. The people who believe in this stuff. They have no insight, and they don't even get the irony of it. But it's absolutely true. If you look up PPE oceans, I believe it's 57, did I say trillion tons? Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, this is unconscionable. 57 million pounds of PPE and other COVID-related plastic waste. And again, this is coming from Fauci's fans. This is Team Fauci. This is the complicit, the mask Karens, all the hypocrites out there, all the boosted. You did this. You destroyed the oceans. And now they're concerned about space junk. All right, let's continue here. Ryla05 says these stories that no normies are even aware of, I wonder why they're seeding them. Well, you may not think the normies are aware of them, and most normies aren't. And when you say normies, you mean, blue pill sleepers. But that's by design. They pack in about 72 hours worth of news into every 24-hour news cycle. That way, no one can keep up. So they focus on what they can. They want you to be drowned out in information, but they also want you to be accepting it, just tacitly, like osmosis in the background. So it's just there. Yeah, whales are dead because of PPE. Space junk is falling, but I got to focus on my TikTok. I got to focus on my Twitter feed. And then later, when the news reports that space junk is raining down from the skies, you're not going to question it because you've already accepted it. That's the nature of being programmed. It's very passive. So the MSM worldview is one that you receive passively. You're not an active consumer of news. You're just a passively programmed recipient of their information, their narratives, and their programming. Now, and it's important to recognize too that the MSM plus, the anti-position, the reactionary, the conspiracy theorists, they're also passive. Even though they're mad and agitated, and this goes for woke. The woke on the left side of the political horseshoe, yeah, they're not exactly in Normieville. They're in Woketown. Truthers are in Trutherville. They're on opposite sides of the political horseshoe, but they're still within the big box. But they've taken a more extreme position. Yet, they're still both passive recipients of propaganda. Pro, anti, both passive. The only active media consumers are the ones who are actively involved in deconstruction and parsing the information and suspending judgment on what they believe. And that would really just be us. It would really just be us. So my point being is that you say the normies may not be aware of this. Well, they're not aware, but they're not aware of very much. Their level of awareness is different. Diana South says none of that PPE was in red hazard bags. Yeah, I remember one of my first criticisms of the event was if everything that touches it is now a contaminated surface that can give it to somebody else, then they should be replacing our recycle buckets. You got your recycling bins with, or adding onto it. We should have a blue bin for recycling your water bottles and a red bin for your PPE waste. But they never gave that to us. And I thought this was a problem because I had done some work in transporting bloodborne pathogen contaminated waste. When I was doing decedent transport, I had a side gig where I was doing crime scene cleanup. So occasionally there would be a scene where there'd need to be some transportation of bloodied carpets or furniture or something, and you can't just throw that bloody carpet or blanket into the municipal trash. It violates EPA, it's got health hazards, it has all kinds of associations, dangerous associations. You have to log it and everything, and it has to go to a certain place. And yet, nobody treated this biohazardous PPE like it was anything special. I just threw it in with the regular trash, and I thought, okay, this is all just theater. Otherwise, we'd all be dead. Elephant Tusk says Mike is in hi-fi mode tonight. Yeah, do we have any sound engineers in here who want to offer some advice? Anyone else having sound issues? Is it loud enough? It is the same mic I always use. Okay, Witsy Gets It has not yet answered my question, do you believe in chemtrails? But he hasn't blocked me yet either. So the door is still open. I have a little bit of an update here regarding the Mad Butcher shooting. Panicked Arkansas grocery store shoppers hid in a freezer. So you had the 311, 3 people shot, 11 injured. And Synchromorpheus pointed this out. I can't remember if this has already been discussed, but the last 3 movies I've seen all have had ice freezing themes. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom all had villains or creatures that use ice and freezing to attack and hurt people. Now, I didn't know this was the case with the Godzilla, but it says New Empire, and I had pointed this out. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Godzilla, New Empire. Empire, EMP. So the nuke has an EMP associated with it. Electromagnetic pulse. This would destroy everything, and the new empire would be built on the ashes. So Frozen Empire, the frozen part would represent nuclear winter. So Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, EMP. Godzilla vs. Kong, New Empire. And it's some kind of ice weapon. Then Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So the freezing attacks. But now we add on to this. Here are some quotes from the shooting event. Quote, we ran in there really fast. We still heard gunshots going off. It was like slow motion. My daughter said, Mama, pinch me. This can't be real. And I said, baby, it's real. So the thing is, whenever we see these events, there's always a discussion about how fake it seems. And they can't believe it. Oh, it's like a movie. That's a reoccurring theme. Panic grocery store shoppers hid in a freezer. So he brings this up, of course, because there's this theme here. Going into the freezer.
All right, greeting.
Okay, moving on. Experts warn NASA of need to address space viruses as a greater threat than extraterrestrial life. So we're more worried now about space viruses than extraterrestrials. Although I would imagine extraterrestrials might be carriers. Jock says Whitsitt is a dork. He is one of those toroidal field earthers. Diana South says winter is coming. Yeah, winter is coming. Game of Thrones, Westeros, burns. And then you have, the dragons. The red dragons are burning Westeros, which could mean China. Westeros is the west. And as it burns, the ashes mix with the snow falling because winter has arrived. Nuclear winter. Then you have Westworld burning. Westworld nuked with a Seattle-like Space Needle at the end. You have the Western fallout. Ends with the Seattle-like scene, or rather a New Vegas, but a Space Needle. But the West is a recurring theme here. Recurring word. It's showing up in so many of these different psyops. The Western, where Rust was filmed. And they all point to the same thing. Okay, let's continue. Diana South says maybe the viruses are extraterrestrials. Not a new theme. Corona Field is where the UFO in Roswell crash landed. And you have this Corona Park in Men in Black. And there is this reoccurring theme that correlates the two. The first vax for the 2020 pandemic was called Sputnik 5. And Sputnik, of course, is the first object sent into orbit. So again, there's a correlation between, low Earth orbit, your circulation in your blood, between space and our inner space, and cyberspace. They connect real viruses to mind viruses, and space junk to essentially mind junk. Stuff that needs to be purified from the commons. Space is a commons. But cyberspace, too, is a commons, and they are both threatened by the richest man in the world. But from their perspective, too, your circulation is a commons, your blood. You may not think of it as such, but if you bring up or consider the vax agenda and the need for everybody to be on the same sheet, you could see that as a commons, because if we're not all on the same sheet, we can't share the same space. Some have to quarantine, some have to separate. So for us all to share the same space, we have to have pure blood, cleansed blood. We have to have cleansed space of space junk. We have to have cleansed cyberspace of mind viruses and bad memes. Multiple layers with this global one world order purification agenda, inside and out, as above, so below. It's layered. Ryler says, did you read Miles Mathis's new paper on the energy crisis and how it's a hoax? It's pretty good. He thinks they're drawing on infinite energy. I'll take a look. Miles is pretty good. His breakdowns are worth reading on everything. He's wrong on one thing, and it has to do with he still believes NASA, and he thinks Flat Earth is a movement to discredit people or something. And I always avoid that. When people say, your idea is just here to make us look bad, you have to understand, you already look bad. Just because you're not on their side. They will never accept you. You cannot curry favor. Like, oh, I'm only a truther 50% of the way. I only believe in these versions, but I don't go the extra step. I'm a safe truther. No, you're not on Team Liar. You're an enemy. If you're a truther, you're an enemy. There's no conspiracy theory that you can accept on any level that's going to get them to agree with you. So you might as well go all the way. Stop trying to curry favor with them. Just go all the way. Go to the edge of the world stage, figure out it's fake. Go to the edge of your globe model and figure out how much you really trust it and those who sold it to you. who are traumatizing you and giving you emotional turmoil by scaring you about space junk. And no, actually, if you believe it's real, you should be scared. Let me ask you this. If you believe in this stuff, you're a ball earther, are you worried about space junk? Why not? I'm like, well, if you believe in chemtrails, you should be wearing a mask. If you believe in space junk, you should be wearing a helmet. If you're not helmeted and masked, I don't think you really believe this stuff. Or you're just very brave. You tell me. Do you not trust the science? You don't trust the science if you're not helmeted right now. You don't believe in it. You're just pretending. It's just so hypocritical. I'm sorry. Hypocritical NASAtologists. If I was a NASAtologist, I would take it all very seriously. Believe me. If you can convince me that it's real, I will change my ways. Diana South says, chilling tale about a U.S. research satellite carrying a deadly extraterrestrial microscopic organism that crashes into a small town in Arizona. Andromeda strain, 1971. Okay, well, I'll check it out. They have correlated the two for such a long time. The virus and the alien. In fact, think of the movie Independence Day, ID4, which is highly significant. Because Independence Day, Roland Emmerich, this is the movie that formed the frame of reference for 9/11 and buildings falling, aliens attacking us. Although it was illegal aliens rather than alien aliens, but the theme is there. And the way they conquered the aliens is they sent, was it Will Smith? They sent Will Smith up there to put a computer virus into their UFO and crash it. Spoiler alert. By the way, Roland Emmerich also did Moonfall, where you had this scientist who saved us from the moon falling. Moonfall, very significant movie, 2022. A couple of things about it. One thing about it, first of all, is that it gave us a lot of, I would say, visuals for satellites falling, for stuff falling from the sky. So when I saw this, I was like, you know what? If Roland Emmerich gave us Independence Day to prepare us for 9/11, then why did he give us Moonfall? Because the next 9/11 is going to be from space. That's why. The hero of the movie, and we're talking about Moonfall 2022, the hero of the movie was a scientist played by John Bradley, who was a sacrificial hero. John Bradley's character had to sacrifice himself to save the world. Anyone care to guess how old he was when he played the savior scientist in Moonfall? Just put your guesses below. Now, this movie came out on 2/4/2022. I watched it in the theater, February 4th, 2022. And there was a scene where the space shuttle is launching as a tidal wave hits it. And everyone in the audience is watching and they're all gasping. And I'm kind of like in the back snickering at this thing. And then the space shuttle shoots out of the water and it goes up into space. And everybody like in the audience is just like cheering. And I'm thinking, wait, they believe this stuff. They don't know this is just trenchant satire. It's a comedy. It's a joke on us. But the movie, as ridiculous as it was a must-see because of its predictive programming value. And yeah, he was 33 at the time. There's a lot I could say about the movie, but I want to point out, it came out on 2/4/2022. Now, 1 year to the date, on 2/4/2023, we had the 2023 Chinese balloon incident. And if you look at the Chinese balloon incident, many pointed out it looked like the moon in all of the photography. So we have what looks like the moon up there, and they have to shoot it down, and it falls. Kind of an interesting coincidence, or not. Now, what's the connection here? Chinese space balloon, they shoot it down. Moonfall, a movie that gives us visuals for junk falling from the sky. What would cause that? Space wars. Who would be our enemy in a space war? Well, obviously, China, Russia, I think. So So it's some kind of a build up, and these things matter. The dates matter. That's why 3/11/2021 they dropped the biggest piece of space junk ever, and a piece from that just hit somebody's house and just made the news, and they pointed it out. It was dropped on 3/11. Okay, let's continue. Ryler05 says, how come the stars only change when you go south and not east or west? I'm not a globe earther, but that's always puzzled me. Jacques says, I have a hard time believing stars are physical. Well, let me point something out, because many of the people who argue against the flat earth assume their model is valid before they even confront it. So in other words, they bring with them not only a bias, but certain facets of the globe and the heliocentric model that wouldn't even be part of the flat earth concept. So for example, how come it's not night and day all over the earth at the same time? Well, because in this model the sun isn't a star 93 million miles away. It would be a local light source. And then two, the stars themselves would not be considered light years away, but would all be considered to be up. So space is not this all-encompassing surrounding emptiness, and then we're on an object in space. With the flat earth concept, space is simply up. And not only that, but the stars and the planets wouldn't be ascribed the distances that they have in the heliocentric model. So none of this stuff can be looked at through the same lens. And for some reason, I still see a lot of glurfs still bringing their own bias into it. I mean, I have a few points that I would bring up whenever we talk about these things regarding what we should see versus what we do see. So for example, if the stars are the distance they say and the planets are the distance they say, if space is as vast as they say, then why don't we have any space clouds? Because there is so much cosmic dust raining down on the earth every day, so we're told, that you would have to guess, well, how much cosmic dust is there between the Earth's surface and the nearest star? Is there not enough? Is the density not enough to create at least one cloud once in a while to block one star or two stars for a couple of months or a few nights? And no. But we have 5,200. Listen to this. Every year, 5,200 tons of interplanetary dust particles reach the Earth's surface. Some say 100 tons a day. So if 100 tons a day of space dust is raining down on the Earth, how come there isn't enough dust between the Earth and Mars to create one cloud enough to block one star for one night? It would be great if we had space clouds and we could witness these things, but I think it's missing. Because if we have a windy day, I have a difficult time discerning the horizon at just a few miles away. And I think there's more dust between me and Mars than between myself and the horizon here. So anyway, if you're a outer space believer, if you're a space cadet, explain to me why there aren't any space clouds. And they'll say, well, there are space clouds. Look at these beautiful pictures. And they'll show me some of their religious art. And yeah, you can find a lot of pictures where NASA will show you these amazing looking configurations of cosmic dust. And they form shapes. Like this one here looks like a horse. You have a skull that they show you on Halloween. They got hearts for Valentine's Day. They have all these magical shapes. Here's the horse one. My point of it is you only get these from their photographs of deep space, but we don't see this stuff. Okay, let's continue. Phones are open if you have any questions, comments, concerns. The number is on the screen, 563-999-3664. McToon on X explains here. He says, quote, I will delete all of my flat earth debunking videos and never touch the topic again if the final experiment contradicts the globes model or confirms the flat Earth? Do any flatties have the courage to make the same commitment? So McToon is the one who has never seen the space station. I had a debate with him, and he said, I can't believe you don't believe in the space station. You could just use the app and go outside and see it. And I said, have you seen it? He stammered. He said, a few times. He considered, should I lie, or will Tim call me out on it? And will I be able to cover it up? And he decided not to lie. And he said, I've never seen it before. Like, you're a NASA fanboy. You got NASA dong rockets behind your head covering the entire shelf here. These are all just phalluses. I'm sorry, but that's what these are. These are obelisks. So you got your cult idols back there. You invest in this. You spend every day. You're basically a professional glurf, and you've never seen the space station? And you're going to try to chastise me for never having seen it? Pathetic. Anyway, McToon is pretty triggered here. But what he's saying is he's putting it all on the table. I'll play a few seconds of it here. He's really mad, and it's kind of hard to listen to him, like an angry science teacher. But let's go ahead and just listen. Just a moment of his rant here about how he's going to delete everything if the final experiment proves that the Earth is flat. Meaning, somebody goes down to Antarctica and witnesses the 24/7 sun. Now, one thing, though, that he has not confronted and will not confront is that there is no legitimate debate between flat Earth versus round Earth without including the role of media, fakeability, special effects, and liars pretending to be in high places. So my point of it is, he is a media advocate, a media believer. He thinks all the news is real. So he's not really in a position to debate the shape of the world.
Cited map.
He's not in a position to know or be an authority on our cosmography. So I don't even trust him to do that. But he is going to delete everything if someone goes out and sees the sun do this thing. Now the issue is this. Even if someone sees a 24-hour sun and it's confirmation that we're on a ball, it doesn't erase the fact that NASA has given us nothing but lies from day one. So then the question becomes, why are they giving us a distorted version? Why are they faking the space station? They're still faking the space station, round or not. Even if you are a glober for life, you're never going to back away from that. That's fine. But you still have to explain why all the evidence, which you accept as real, is fake. Globe or not, it's fake evidence. Your God construct has been misrepresented. But let me go ahead and play a moment of his ranting.
Vulgarities and things. I will pre-record that and tell you what, of all of the 24 flat earthers that have been invited to go, you can each give me your own script and I will pre-record that video. And
he's offering to humiliate himself and read some scripts that we write, but 24 flat earthers have been invited to Antarctica. Nobody invited me. But if everyone else bails, I'm on the list. And because, look, I also contacted a travel agency. There's an opening for a 1-week trip to Antarctica for two, $10,000 a ticket. I need a camera person and the main reporter, which could be me. It depends if no one else steps up. But if we book it and do a press release, we could probably get a lot of support for this. So just a heads up here, we are planning to go deep south and plant our flag first. And I'm also interested in somebody checking out Mount Meru or the big black hole in the middle or whatever is there at the North Pole. So we'll talk about this. But a few seconds here. This is McToon, who has never seen the space station, but he believes in it.
That the experiment is done well. And yes, it is an experiment. An experiment is a test of a hypothesis. It's a falsification test. There's no dogma around what is and is not an experiment. If you tested a hypothesis, you did an experiment. Hypothesis, the sun will do what the globe predicts. Hypothesis, the sun will do what flat earth predicts. There you have done an experiment. So
now he is within a closed model, a closed system. And by closed system, it means this. All of his information comes from a set number of sources and nothing from outside of it. Meaning, he will never accept sources that say, According to my expertise, this footage is fake. He can't even include that in his perspective, and we know this to be fact. We do know that media fakery is a fact of life, above and below, with fake space and what's on the ground. So knowing this, we know that the starting point for this man is obviously rooted in the world stage. It's rooted in fakery. It assumes the existence and the reality of everything it reports on. He lives in an echo chamber, and so he's not a qualified witness in this subject. So I'd hate to disappoint him, but if somebody goes down there and sees the 24-hour sun, NASA still lies, and we still don't have a picture of the so-called Earth. And I'm not a flat earther, I'm not even an earther, I'm not even convinced that we're on a discrete object floating in quote space. Prove that first, and then we'll talk about whether we're on an object. Okay, continuing here. Elon Musk tweeted, "This might be the downfall of Western civilization." And he had a response by someone who said, "You know what can actually be the downfall of civilization? People who dismiss facts, disparage scientists and journalists, disseminate batshit crazy conspiracy theories, and buy themselves a medium to amplify them." My point being, Elon Musk is considered to be a threat to Western civilization because of his memes, his mind junk. So you see the correlation between mind junk, mind viruses, cyberspace, our inner space, these commons being destroyed by this man, how it correlates to space junk and low Earth orbit. Because the problem with space junk and low Earth orbit isn't just that it might hit you on the head, but that it could create what's called the Kessler syndrome. One piece of junk hits another piece of junk, hits another, and it's like a game of pool up there. And everything gets knocked out of its place, and we can no longer safely exit the Earth. He could lock us down on Earth forever. Okay, a couple of things. Synchromorphia said, hey, remember, in addition to Trump's sentencing, the preliminary hearing for Justin Osmone is set for 7/11. So if you remember Justin Moan was the militia guy and self-published Amazon self-published author. He was putting books up there about the fall of America and stuff. He started a militia called Moan's Militia, and then he chopped his father's head off. His father's an FBI agent. He showed it off on Twitter, and then he got deleted from Twitter, but I think they stopped him when he went to go shoot up some National Guard base. But anyway, he's going to be let's see, he's going to be in court on 7/11. Levittown beheading suspect Justin Moan has been scheduled for a preliminary hearing for killing his father and then calling for the violent overthrow of the federal government. That was the other part of it. 32-year-old, which we well know means 33, murdered his father, Michael Moan, MM. Interesting. Now, a couple of things about this. We've been talking about how this person seemed like he was almost like they were trying to. Well, they are doing this. This is not even they're trying to. He's a conspiracist, conspiracist. They keep smearing conspiracy theories. What they want to make it look like, you don't trust the news, you're probably going to chop off the head of an FBI agent and call for a violent revolution next. That's the slippery slope you're on when you don't trust MSM. We watched this thing wondering, why does he kind of look like me? Now, I don't think he looks like me, but if I was a Fed and I was creating a psyop to demonize a conspiracy theorist and I wanted to find like an archetype, I would find someone that looks like someone that you're trying to demonize. So it does kind of look like they found someone who looked as close to me as they could. So we've been calling him Justin Osmone instead of Justin Moan. Anyway, fascinatingly, about 3 days before he chopped his dad's head off and called for a violent revolution in the killing of FBI agents, a few days before, we had a caller who was talking about revolution. And I said, The IPS is only inactivists. We are conscientious objectors to the mind war. We have no interest in fighting government. I'm not anti-government. I'm anti-anti. I'm not pro. I'm not anti. I'm speaking from an objective ivory tower position. We're not getting involved in anything close. It's like a J6 or a street riot or a beheading. Well, this caller had mentioned revolution because I was describing how the Patriot Front's founder's name is Thomas Rousseau. And the name Rousseau has a lot to do with the philosopher whose ideas led to the French Revolution. Bloody, heads rolling down the street. And the caller had stated emphatically that they actually did have a desire for heads to roll down the street. Bloody revolution. People rising up and chopping off heads. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to archive this one. This one's not going to go in the archives because I don't want Infinite Plane Radio being associated with calls to chop people's heads off and start revolutions. Then a few days later, we have Justin Osmond doing exactly what the caller had ordered. And I was like, that's exactly why we don't platform these ideas, you see? Okay, let's see what else we have. Salty says they're playing games. Mountain Dew, Infinite Spiral at 7-Eleven. It's Aqua. Yeah, we have another Mountain Dew thing. So Mountain Dew has something called Infinite Swirl. And you could only get it at 7-Eleven. Fascinating. Now, if you remember, it was Mountain Dew Maui Blast. I walked into a Walmart. I see Maui Blast Dew, like direct energy weapon. And that was the day that Maui had been blasted by direct energy weapons, Chinese space lasers. Then we had the bridge, the Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Francis Scott Key Bridge gets hit by a cargo ship called Dolly, and this all had precedent with Leave the World Behind. Totally fake event. We called it fake. It was fake, as we suggested. And then Mountain Dew releases Star Spangled Splash. Star Spangled Splash sounds a lot like Francis Scott Key boat splashing into the water. So this is just another. And there are a few other ominous indicators among various Mountain Dew cans. One of them has like a blackout, I believe. Ryler says it wasn't Chinese space lasers, it was an Air Force that used it from high altitude and drones. Lean Dion says Chinese space boosters recently fell from the sky. Now, here's the thing, just with Maui, really quick here, because there's three perspectives on it. One, climate change did it, so you can blame Republicans and capitalism for what happened in Maui. I even heard a podcaster who said, I feel so bad because I know we caused it. It was one of these liberal podcasters, and they all literally believe in this stuff. They think it's a direct one-to-one correlation. I didn't recycle, and now 1,500 children burned to death in a big Maui fire because of climate chaos. Sorry. They take the blame for that. They self-flagellate, and they expect everybody else to capitulate to their environmentalist religion. So that's one perspective. We did it because of climate change. The other perspective for Maui is that it was direct energy weapons, it was the deep state, it was the Air Force, it was some kind of laser attack, and these fires are unlike anything we've ever seen. So now you have two versions. Some kind of special weaponry, covert attack, or climate change. One of them is the mainstream, one is the conspiratorial view. But what is the third view? The third view, and this comes from skepticism, is that nothing happened. It was a psyop. It was a movie set. That there weren't any fires that were uncharacteristically bad, but rather it was dressed up that way for the purposes of the psychological operation itself. And this is underscored by the fact that the police chief there is the same guy who oversaw the Las Vegas shooting hoax. Okay, here we have what Lean Dion referenced. A booster fell to Earth. This is just a day ago. Like, this is suddenly a thing. Space junk Armageddon is here. The booster fell to Earth near Guiding County, Prefecture, Okay, let me see if I can find an image of it. It says here there's an airspace closure notice for the mission, and they established a temporary danger area to contain it. Okay, Chinese rocket parts fell near residential area. So this is another recurring theme. Residential areas. Break out your space helmets. Might as well get them now. And don't think you're not going to be wearing one. You know, you think you're independent, you're a free thinker, you don't need a space junk helmet, but you know that the instant you go to the store and you have all these helmet Karens glowering at you, you're just going to put one on so you don't have to deal with the headache. All right, Chinese rocket parts falling near residential area. You have images of it. People running for their lives. Okay, people seen running for their lives. Did you see it on video? Toxic fumes spread in the air. All right. Now, are they going to be able to sue NASA? Where is this viral video from? Internet goes crazy in viral video. Parts of Chinese rocket fall near residential area. Now, this is how they create hyperstitions. Space is fake. There is no low Earth orbit. There are no spaceships. There's no Chinese space station. There's no ISS. At least these are movie sets. They don't exist in reality, in the physical world. But they exist in our mental world. In the world stage construct, our internalized version of the world, these things exist. Why? Because everybody believes it, one, which makes it a superstition. Everyone believes in Bigfoot. Doesn't make it real. It's a superstition. But what happens when they manufacture the appearance of a Bigfoot in front of witnesses and the news reports it? Well, now it goes from superstition to hyperstition. Now it exists because it's reinforced with the feedback within the closed system. In this case, they drop some props from the sky, assuming that this isn't just AVR. They put it on the news, it goes viral. Now everybody believes that there are objects high up above. There are space stations and spacecraft, and they believe in space junk. Now it went from superstition to hyperstition. All right, let me continue on your comments. Ryler says the YouTuber Donut was in that same city a week before it happened, streaming there, making videos with that green guy. The Unmediated Mind says, speaking of lasers, is freestyle laser engraving a thing yet, like carving granite with laser guns? Or is that reserved for Terminator robots? Okay, commenter says, this battle is ancient, the eve of destruction, and the fall is now. It's more obvious as the veil is lifting. The veil is not lifting. The new veil, the new hoodwink, is clear. It's transparent. It's the screen, the assumed window to the world. That is the new veil. And most people have their noses pressed up against it and they live through it. Those who are thinking a little deeper go look for more information to back up what they don't trust on the screen at face value, and they become conspiracy theorists or wokesters, and they put their head through the screen. So lifting the veil isn't even a possibility at this point. The only thing you can do is step away from the veil. Social distance from it. 6 feet away. 6 feet away and 72-hour holding period before believing anything on it. But no, the veil's not lifting. You can lift yourself. Lean Dion says, don't look up unless helmeted. Yeah, well, bring an umbrella because of the... Some people are saying that the sun... I have some tweets. Some people are worried about the sun, that it's no longer the same sun or it has some kind of... I'll see if I can find it. But it's worse than it was, according to one person I've seen on Twitter hyping this up. But you should be wearing a mask for chemtrails, of course. And then, of course, yeah, you do need to wear a helmet. Okay, I'll see if I can find it. So many great tweets here, by the way. You have to follow me on IPS Insider so you don't miss anything. And I have this other clip I want to show you, just to give you an example of how fear control works. I'll find the post from the Skyphobe later. I think I found it. Okay, here it is. Her name is I Drop F-Bombs. and she's on Twitter, and she says, I don't know, I don't care, you all believe what you want, but there is an LED simulator in front of our sun. Many people are complaining that their solar powered lights, water features are not getting a full charge. Plants are no longer producing chlorophyll, making them weaker. There are strange anomalies of people, such as glitches and flickering black spots in the sun. How much more evidence do we need? This is not the same sun I grew up with, not the same weather. Everything is fake. So I hear a lot of this kind of stuff about the sun being fake and how the sun's not the same, or the sun used to be yellow. Anyway, just pointing it out that, yeah, if you didn't have enough to fear with chemtrails and space junk, now you got to fear the sun. Okay, now this is an example of fear-induced mind control. So this individual is playing a prank on his uncle. What he's done is he put a video up that appears to be a PSA, or an emergency broadcast, that says that the world is being attacked and that nukes are falling and seek shelter. And he's playing this for his uncle, and they're both panicking, and he has his uncle ready to run underneath the bed. And the reason why I think this is worth noting is that we can laugh at them. We can laugh like, oh, this guy thinks nukes are real because he sees it on TV and he's ready to run underneath the bed. But at the same time, even the guy playing the prank ultimately believes that this is a possibility.
I told you not to vote for him. Man, talking about vote for nobody need to take shelter. They tell you what the fuck to do.
Now he's blaming him for voting for Biden.
Hide under the bed then. Go with Joe Biden, hide under the bed then. Hide under the bed. You got to go. You know to the police station. Ain't nowhere to go but the police station. Where we gonna go? Do you know it's a seek shelter? That means the police station. Fuck the police station. The police station can't do a motherfucking thing.
12 nuclear missiles aimed towards the United States.
The mainland United States. 4 of the 12 missiles launched have been intercepted. The 8 remaining.
So they about to come to America. Russia here. They here.
So
we got to get the fuck out of here. We got to find. See, I listen what they saying. Okay, get under the bed. Hurry up. Hurry up. Hurry up. Get under the fucking bed. 6 shelter. Under the bed. They blowing missiles and everything to bed.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of confidence that under the bed's enough. Now, this isn't a skit. This is a guy playing his uncle. Hilarious joke, but is it funny? Is it funny to make jokes about millions or billions of people dying in World War III? How can you be joking at a time like this? We can joke about it because we know it's fake. Okay, here we have it. China dropped another booster stage in a local village. We have another shopping mall attack psyop. We'll look into that one. Oh, this is interesting. Once again happening after a June 15th drill. Same script as the USA. Watch for new terror laws the public will welcome. See the pics of the frightened people below. BS. Cubstar pointed out that The Boys' new season started with Carl Urban playing a character called Billy Butcher. Billy, short for William. Okay, we have that Mad Butcher thing. Here's an interesting tidbit. The Nolans, Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, have a third brother, Matthew, who was a hitman operating under the codename Oppenheimer. We mentioned this the other day. A new reality show will pay cash if players can convince the experts that the Earth is flat. What is with this resurgence and interest in the flat Earth? I don't know. And here's Trump being Trump.
He's sleeping now because they want to get him good and strong, so a little before debate time he gets a shot in the ass, and they want to strengthen him up. So he comes out, he'll come out, I say he'll come out all jacked up, right?
This is Biden's going to come out jacked up after getting, quote, a shot in the ass. Talking about the debate, which is coming up on Thursday. Got a community note here. Kyle Rittenhouse has not yet settled the lawsuit with Whoopi Goldberg, so he doesn't have a basis to go after her assets. I guess some people, and I heard this too, thought he had received some money from her or was getting a settlement that maybe he could afford to pay his sister and his mom's rent. But no, he has not been paid yet. We have chaos in the streets as pro-Palestine protesters clash with Jewish counter-protesters, leading individuals to bleed as they're attempting to block a synagogue entrance. Again, this is just religion and religious people being religious. Nothing to see here. Really just interchangeable symbols, but it's the same stuff. Same behavior. Fascinating behavior, in fact. I'm not concerned or perturbed by it whatsoever. This is the weather for it. But one thing I will point out is that I don't take positions on the world stage because I think it's designed to create this exact phenomenon. And we're probably going to see more of it in the coming months. You know, these riots, Proud Boys versus Soy Boys. What are they fighting for? I don't know. But this is being reported. Currently, numerous law enforcement officers in riot gear in Los Angeles. So we'll follow that story. We kind of covered 2020 pretty much in depth. And I want to point out too that when we look at big events like January 6th or even 2020, you can't assume that all the riots are real. Even though it looks chaotic, you don't know. These are closed movie sets. And we have to really understand the scalability of how much or of these fake events. Like how big can they make it? The other day someone was questioning the premise that 9/11 was just a movie. Well, yeah, it was a controlled demolition with movie scenes or movie, I guess you would call them video compositing. So you had pre-recorded footage added onto it, but it was really made as they went along. So they presented the demolition, added some special effects, but for the most part, what we saw on TV wasn't what happened in person. Nobody saw planes. But the scale of it is a little daunting. How do you fake something that big? Well, there were 88 drills going on that day. There were 1,000 plus casualty actors, witnesses, all of it scripted. So when you think about the scale of it, you can kind of recognize that it's possible for a riot to be simulated. We don't have to run off with the assumption that they were stimulated. So if you listen to truthers, they will say January 6th was a stimulated riot. It was provoked by feds. Ray Epps made it happen. No, it was simulated. There were people in place at the Capitol filming the action while Trump was still speaking. If you went there to hear Trump speak, you would have had a 45-minute walk ahead of you before you made it to where the prearranged melee was going to take place. Nobody died, nobody cried. And I just bring this up because these riots, like BLM's riots, they only happened because they were bussing people around, that they had a lot of money. But unless you have direct experience, I mean, we do have plenty of examples of, real rioting and real people acting terribly, but there's a point where they blur the lines. Like, I'm really questioning now at the LA riots. I know there's, how many billions of dollars in damages were done during the LA riots, but looking at how it started, how it was provoked, yeah, $1 billion in damage. 2,300 injured, 63 killed, 12,000 arrested. Where does the simulation become stimulation? I'm very curious. How much of this was faked? How much was staged? I'd like to know. Whether it's insiders, crisis rioters, whatever it happens to be. And I say this because the more you look at it, the more you find this all has the hallmarks of hoaxery, from the Rodney King beating to the interesting alignment between James Cameron Terminator 2 and its role in fomenting the riots. Turns out Terminator 2 is being filmed in Los Angeles. The bad guy is a cop. And at one of the locations where the Terminator shows up, they're filming a scene, and a man named Holiday is out there with his handheld camera recording James Cameron at work. So he's recording the Terminator 2 being produced. On his way home, he sees the Rodney King beating, where an evil cop or evil cops are doing this terrible thing, and he records it. So that video starts the riots. So you see this connection. Cameron, evil cop, guy records evil cops, riots start. They're filming a major blockbuster movie So we also have to include the idea of closed movie sets being already arranged. They could pre-record stuff. You can't assume everything's live. And on 9/11, it wasn't all live. So I'm re-examining a lot of this stuff and kind of I'm opening the discussion here, I guess, to the question about the veracity of the claims when it comes to these riots. When we look at riots on TV, should we look at these things as anything more than political theater? And I'm sure there are some useful idiots who get caught up in these things. Their psyop is infinite, there is no end. Yeah, I've called this World War Infinite. We can only say World War III so many times and it loses its punch. Alex Jones has been hyping World War III about to kick off every day for 20 years, probably. So it's like, no, this is the perpetual war that Orwell described. War is peace. War is peace in this benevolent dictatorship that maintains a constant state of inner war in order to keep everyone nullified and from seeing this for what it is. Okay, we have many more things to go over today, but I think I'm just about out of time. We covered a lot of the main stuff. Let me play this short clip. Alex Jones and Tucker are, and I pointed this out, so they're hyping the idea that aliens are demons. And now it's a spiritual war. Now it's good versus evil. The reason they're doing this is that left wing is atheistic, believers in scientism, and the main question is, for them, about purity. These are purity things. These religions are about purification. So their version of purity is blood purity via injectable Eucharist and mental purity by getting rid of mind viruses, by cleaning up X, cleaning up the internet, quarantining minds. In other words, getting rid of conspiracy theories. So to the left wing, evil is racism and conspiracy theories, things that go against the mainstream media church and its doctrines. And so it's interesting that the left would embrace aliens as a scientific idea, as progress. But the right sees them as evil. And that's because left believes in the new concepts of evil. Viruses and mind viruses and conspiracy theories and climate change is the wrath of God and their eschatology putting us in the end times. But to the right, they still believe in the Old Testament God and wickedness and sin and evil in the traditional sense. So this is intentional. It's part of the bifurcation. That's why you hear these individuals talking like they're preachers. So let me play this clip here. This says, Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson agree that, quote, a hellraiser spirit is guiding the elite transhuman depopulation movement.
Suicide death cult nature of the globalists, yes. and why they're so nihilistic, why they're doing this, and how they see a nuclear war as some survivable thing for them, and then it'll get rid of the population, and they'll reemerge. In the Wall Street Journal, even with headlines looking forward to the end of humanity, and just hundreds of headlines about humans are a parasite. Let's get rid of them, and then the horrible, sick things they do. Like, this is really, at the end of the day, a spiritual battle, and you've talked some about that in your guest tab, but I want you to really go deep on this today.
Well, I mean, I think the framework that most of us internalized growing up in this country was evolutionary biology, the idea that human behavior is the product of millions of years of adaptations.
So now you hear it. He's describing how science doesn't explain it because they don't believe in the scientific explanation, and he's going to bring about how he goes with the other side. So this isn't profound. It's not insightful. This is the opposite of, this is the MSM plus. This is the anti to the pro.
To the environment, and we like things, we don't like things because our ancestors had a need to like or dislike those things. And it makes sense, and I think to some extent it's true. But the bottom line imperative in evolutionary biology is survival. The whole point of existence is to pass on your genes to another.
Anyway, just describing how you have this kind of priesthood emerging, good versus evil. This is why you have a lot of the influencers openly espousing that they're now religious and going to church. Candace Owen, Jack Posobiec, they're all playing it up. They do exorcisms. Steve Bannon, who's going to jail on the 1st, did a prayer during the eclipse in case any satanic entities were going to slip through. And they don't believe this stuff. They think that their idiot audiences, and that's what they think, believe this stuff. And believe them to be credibly voicing opinions and that they're actually fighting some holy war of some kind. And again, it's all just absurd. Okay, looks like again the Starliner is delayed. The Calypso craft, it's going to be up there for 7 years, lost in space. The Odyssey connection, Calypso Odyssey, does not bode well for the Boeing Starliner mission. We've had some interesting developments with the Sandy H story and a possible explanation for one of its star characters, who is a twin. And Synchromorpheus has been pointing out how twins are a common tactic or technique for creating fake people. It says here, same trick with JonBenet Ramsey and her brother Burke, Nicole Simpson, her sister Denise, Lana Graves, sister Aaliyah, and the Challenger members. Many examples of this. Listen to this. I did a little digging. This is from Sagittarius, N2U, who said, Chadwick Boseman was interviewed and said, quote, I'm dead, and repeated it. I remember they said he passed away at 42, and they changed his birth year, which I had already screenshotted to keep receipts. So it's weird that they said he died from colon cancer without even doing an autopsy. New evidence is out and the media is keeping quiet, but they said he was actually poisoned. So they're adding to the story. Now, Chadwick Boseman played Mr. 42. Chadwick Boseman had $4.2 million raise for COVID. Chadwick Boseman was reportedly dead at 42. But after Zach Hubbard and myself were breaking down all the instances of 42 around BLM, the riots, Chadwick Boseman, and the significance in this meta-script perspective, and how obvious it was, they changed it to 43. Sort of like how Justin Osmond was 32, not 33. So they changed it. But now, it says here, Toronto Today autopsy, Chadwick Boseman was poisoned. Homicide investigation begins. The significance here is Black Panther. You had the Black Panthers before BLM. BLM, summer of BLM was 2020. And he dies at 42. He dies, strangely enough, he dies on, I think it was, because MLB has it Jackie Robinson Day. Did he die on Jackie Robinson Day? I think he did. Mr. 42. And MLB were all wearing 42s on their jerseys. The 42 for Mr. 42. Chadwick Boseman, Jackie Robinson in 42 dies. Boseman fell dead on the 17th anniversary of Jackie Robinson Day. Now, it goes on because this same week, the NBA was celebrating Mamba Week, commemorating the death, or rather the life and death of Kobe Bryant. But listen to this, because this is the same week. So remember, MLB, which is BLM backward, they're all wearing 42s. Mr. 42 dies on Mr. 42 Day. Kobe Bryant's Hall of Fame basketball career and impact on the athletic industry, they had this Mamba Week to commemorate it at Nike. On Sunday, August 23rd, which would have been his 42nd birthday. Lots of 42s. And at this time, you had Rip King, because the king of Wakanda was dead. But at the same time, BLM, the successors to the Black Panthers, while the Black Panther was being mourned, they were over at the MLK Memorial and Monument. You know, the one for the, I think the event was the 57th anniversary of I Have a Dream. So you have MLK, Mamba Week, Black Panther, Rip King, all this stuff at the same time. And it overlapped, and it got even kind of creepy because the children fans of Chadwick Boseman were burying their Chadwick Boseman dolls in the yard and doing the crossed arms over their chest, which is the symbol of Osiris risen. And Osiris has connections to this this dead Black Panther archetype, what it represents, the Rip King, MLK, Moloch, MLK, another reference to, again, Earth God, Saturn, Sun God in death, the Osiris risen stuff. A lot of deep ritual, and it was at all levels during that time. But we may revisit that. The new detail is that Chadwick Boseman's death has been pointed out as having possibly been a homicide, which is a interesting new development. Yeah, Operation 42 raised 4.2 million, and that just scratches the surface. You know, the BLM, MLB, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panthers, 57th anniversary, I Have a Dream. It that summer was just nothing but psyop after psyop after psyop. Okay, we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. I'm going to send out archives from last night. It's 6/23, 2024. We were expecting the Starliner to arrive back tomorrow, but that's been delayed. That's the big news. Just a quick recap here. I did upload a video onto the main YouTube channel explaining the connections between the Joker and all the Trump trials and the significance of Robert De Niro exhibiting his TDS in front of everybody. JL called last night, I mentioned this. While Trump was giving a speech in Pennsylvania, during his speech, a Philadelphia police officer was shot in the head in North Philly, and he was speaking at a place called Temple. Make of that what you will. It just seems to add to what we've already been describing. We mentioned too, again, that the Witzik Gets It has been questioned about his belief on chemtrails. We have to start asking questions, and we have to start figuring out who is who. And he's always involved in these debates, and he's always citing logical fallacies, formal and informal. So if he believes in chemtrails, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. So I'm going to find it very curious. Now, if he's an honest person, he's going to recognize all of the logical fallacies that I listed on the article in which I mentioned him. And he'll have to concede that there are no chemtrails, which would make him a chemtrail auto hoaxer, which is what we want. Anyway, thank you for joining. This is One-Eyed Jack in the Shells, Death to the Ball. We will continue this conversation, possibly even in the morning. We do have a caller, so I'm going to go ahead and take this call. Hey, caller, can you hear me okay?
Hey, yeah, I can. I wasn't expecting you to take my call, but I appreciate it. A few things, if I could get in real quick.
Sure.
I must have missed the show about the guy that called in talking about calling for a revolution. You know, when you think about a revolution, it's just a 360 spin. You're just going in the same direction that you were going in the first place when you perform a revolution. So if you really want to buck the system, just do a 180 instead and reverse the things that are happening that you don't like instead of trying to blame everything on how everything's going, which will continue. And like if you have a real revolution, you're going to have the same exact problems that you had in the first place because all you did was get back to the original place you started in. You know, you turn around and back up and evaluate what.
I see your point, and
you evaluate what happened.
Well, I mean, have there been any revolutions, or are there any attempts at quote of resistance that aren't led by the same controllers, the same powers that write the mainstream version that we want to rebel against? So I think you're right about that. Revolution implies cycles, not breaking a cycle. And you said going 180, and you're right about that because every day the news cycle goes in these loops, and the only way you can see through it is if you pause, suspend judgment, and look back. Not just look at the present, but look back 180. So you definitely make a strong point here.
Yeah, and it was weird because I first heard I saw it. It was like on Facebook or something like that where I first saw that claim, And just thinking about it, it just makes sense when you think about it. So, the 360 is you do a turn and then you're back facing the same exact way that you were going in the first place. So come on, revolution is just a fancy word for going to the same old shit that you had in the first place. But so he's wrong in that. We don't need a revolution. We need a change. So and if you want to change, the best way to change is to change yourself. Have a
Yep.
new mindset. Get a new mindset. Now we know that nukes are fake. If that doesn't change your mindset, I don't know what will. You know, what can make you happier than knowing that there's not some fucking madman out there that can just press a button and blow everything up? That should be
Yes.
a total mindset changer, in my opinion.
And you're right
But
about this. Changing yourself. Like, what I'm trying to do here is I want to find all those who aren't trying to engage in revolution. Truthers are in a revolution. Wokers are trying to have a revolution. I'm like, no, we have to change the way we look at news, which means stepping away from the screen as a primary frame of reference. And that's the turning 180 on the cycle. And instead of trying to start a revolution, it's like, no, let's conscientiously object and get as many people who are already suspending judgment and unplugging, and let's get on the same sheet and not go with the flow. And they sell revolution to young idealists. They sell it to people who don't have any kind of frame of reference, and they sell it as like rebellious or something like that. But really, it's a very conformist thing to do, to follow along with the contrived revolutions and controlled rebellions. It's very conformist.
well, yeah, it's catchy. It's catchy for a reason. They want you to fall into a group, and once you're in a group, you're controlled. And once you get into that group where uh you're either on this side or that side, they fully control both sides, and it's always binary. Very rarely will you find a three-way thing where there's three different ideas competing. It's always going to be one or the other, and they
Yes,
want you to decide.
I have an axiom for
So,
this. I say axiom 47 in the auto hoaxology book is if it has a if any one of these big psychological operations, if any big issue of the day has a bifurcated interpretation depending on where you sit politically, then it's fake. So for example, left thinks it's fake, right thinks it's real, and vice versa, or they both have I guess contradictory explanations for it. It can't be real. So when anything shows up in the world and you can just choose what you want to believe about it, I think you can rest assured it's not real because reality isn't fluid like that. And all these political footballs are split down the middle like that, always binary. So if it's binary, it's part of the
and
control system.
yeah, and another way to notice that is to look at the level of emotion that's behind these people's ideas. If they're highly emotional about it, you can almost bet your bottom dollar it's fake. Something's going on with it. If these people are so pissed about, like you said earlier, about the plastics putting in the ocean from the PPE. If they were really that emotional about saving the earth, they wouldn't have been okay with dumping all that crap in there. And I would think it was 57 million pounds. I think that's like 20 something uh thousand tons or something like that. I don't know. You said like some kind of trillion tons, but and look, I mean, I can dispute the sea level rise all I want, but it's not going to add to the conversation, so I'm not going to do that.
Oh yeah,
But
obviously I'm trolling about that because they've been promising the sea levels are going to rise, and I'm like, it'd be ironic if when they finally do rise, it's because of the believers in sea levels rising through all their trash in the water. So no, I obviously don't
yeah,
believe it's even possible.
okay, so so that makes it even funnier. I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that. But yeah, it's so like I find that when people are highly emotional about stuff, take politics for one. You got Trump here and Biden there. You got fanatics on both sides, and to me, when I see that level of emotion surrounding something like that, I automatically assume that there's something going on because why would you be so hyped up about something that has no meaning in your life whatsoever? If you're giving it this much attention. I don't even give a dog that much attention when I'm petting it. And you're over here slobbing on people's knobs that they don't know you. You don't know them. They're never going to do anything in your life directly or indirectly. And it's like, why are you're giving all this attention to these programs that aren't even impacting you, but it's
Agreed.
just because the TV is hyping these people up.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
it's
point.
like
Uh,
when I
I mean,
when I see this level of emotion, it's just like, nah, dude, something's going on. Something's driving you to be this emotional about people that don't even know you.
that was my first clue.
And to me, that's a red flag, and
It,
it's an indicator. It's
it,
an indicator of where someone's at and whether or not they can be helped. And to me, anybody, this is 2024, and to me, anybody who hasn't at least discovered that politics is completely contrived is a lost cause at this point. I mean, there's no helping Trumpers. There's no helping Democrats. I mean, to me, they're but one and the same.
Agreed. Agreed. And the emotion thing is
They're
huge too.
lost causes.
A lot of us got our start down this path when we started realizing they're bringing out actors to try to get us to look at these scenarios emotionally instead of intellectually. And if you've ever been manipulated emotionally by somebody with crocodile tears, you know that that is a tactic that has been, it's a time-worn tactic. And everybody falls for it until they see through it and realize some people can fake emotion to manipulate people who are empathic. And the media was using these tactics with every one of these events, and I realized, okay, uh, if they had just pure facts, they wouldn't need to resort to this. That's highly questionable. It's manipulative, and I'm not going to follow manipulators, no matter how much everyone else just trusts them. To me, this is culty. The mass media has become a big cult.
Yeah, I'm 100%. If you have to display a certain level of emotions to try to convince a portion of people that something's going on, you're failing already because you shouldn't have to. It should be the meaning behind it and not the emotion that you're carrying behind the message. If it's a solid message, there should be no emotion attached.
Or no logical fallacies. I mean, I
Otherwise,
can understand passion, but you shouldn't
that
have.
too.
You can have passion, but you don't have to have emotional manipulation and logical fallacies. If you have a real point, you shouldn't need to use a crowbar, to pry open someone's mind. You shouldn't have to use logical fallacies to force ideas in that wouldn't be accepted if they were critically analyzed. So that's why I bring up the
Dude,
presence of logical fallacies because that's a form of lying that they have weaponized against us.
and dude, great thing about passion. Yeah, passion is I think passion is an exception to the rule as long as emotion, uh, wrong levels of emotion aren't involved in that passion because it's important to be passionate. If you're not passionate enough, you're not going to get anything done. But there is a level of passion that involves certain emotions that you're just trying to manipulate at that point. And when that comes into play, you can disregard the other things. But to me, passion is important. If you don't have passion, to me, things just don't. You're not going to get anything done, in my opinion. But one last thing I want to bring up, and like I said, I appreciate you taking my call because I was ready to hang up. But I actually live in Arkansas, and I kept getting these extreme alerts on my phone. It said, oh fuck, what was the city name?
Mad Butcher?
I know it was at the Mad Butcher. Oh, it was in Fordyce. Now, I was thinking about the word Fordyce, and I know that's a town in Arkansas. I have no clue where it is. I live in the northwest portion of Arkansas. I haven't even looked into it myself. But the very first thing that I thought when I saw this message, I got two different messages on my phone, about an hour apart, talking about this shit and Fordyce, and it said there's a gunman on the loose at the Mad Butcher grocery store or whatever. And the first thing I'm like, Mad Butcher, and there's a killing spree. Like what?
So you're
And
getting
it
you're getting
reminded me of
phone notices for an ongoing psyop. That is a new twist. That is actually a new twist because
abs.
it's
Yeah, absolutely. It was an extreme. It was called an extreme alert on my phone. Like the last extreme alert that we got was a tornado warning, and this popped up like an extreme alert. It had the real annoying sound you get, and
right.
I'm like, had to race to turn it off, and I looked at it, and it was like, oh, all I saw was Fordyce and Mad Butcher and people getting shot.
That's
Was in the
fascinating.
message, and I'm like, whoa,
Yep.
what's going on?
That's
Mad
target
Butcher.
that's
Like as
target
soon as I saw
marketing.
Mad Butcher,
Yeah, this is like really targeted marketing.
yeah. Well, don't forget, I also live in Arkansas, so I think it's a statewide thing, like a Amber Alert. It's the same type of shit as an Amber Alert, really, and a tornado warning. All that shit's all part of the emergency alert system now, and so I don't know if it was just an Arkansas only thing. You know, I
But
live in
regardless,
Arkansas. Maybe they're like,
they're
maybe,
they're coordinating their fake
yeah,
events with their alert system to
with
rate
the emergency alert
yeah,
system.
elevate anxiety, let people know so that when it happens, like, oh, I heard about this, it makes it realer. So this is just deepening the theater. Very interesting development.
Yeah, it does. So, what do you think about the town's name Fordyce? Does that I know it's spelled Fordyce or something like that, but
I,
do you think that holds any clues
I
or
think it must, and we're still kind of looking into it because there's some fascinating connections with the Mad Butcher and with Hannibal Lecter and his connection to Jodie Foster. There have been some people who have found some links, so there may be some stuff in there we'll probably dig up here. But I'm still looking at the event, and to me, it's very questionable in itself. But interesting
yeah,
twist there that they're sending out
yeah, I
Amber
heard you and
Alerts.
Jurassic Liars.
Hmm.
Yeah, I heard you and Jurassic Liars talking about it either yesterday or the day before, and I was pretty entertained by that. I thought it was very odd. I mean, come on, you gotta. And I guess there's more than one of these Mad Butchers because I saw the Facebook video that somebody put out. Where they were at a gas station, and you could hear the gunshots and all that stuff going on. And they were like, "Oh yeah," but if you look at the comments, it indicated. Now I haven't, like I said, I haven't looked into any of this, so I'm speculating at this point. But apparently, I'm guessing there's more than one Mad Butcher location. Because what I gathered from the comments was it's like a local grocery type of store in that
Okay.
area of Arkansas.
Well, I see the
So
name. The name
I
is
don't
Ford,
know. So
like
don't quote me on that.
Ford, like Ford Dice. A couple of things about it: 3 dead, 11, and a lot of the headlines when I first saw it, it was AR for Arkansas, and they AR is like a trigger for a lot of people, like AR-15. But this whole story, Mad Butcher,
Yeah.
AR, the whole thing was designed to, I think, invoke fear and terror. The guy's name Travis Posey is also kind of interesting because some have connected him to Travis Bickle, who was the inspiration for Reagan's shooter, and he looks like Reagan's shooter, John Hinckley. So, overlapping coincidences and connections with some of the broader events, but Mad Butcher automatically looks fake to me. I got to continue to
Yeah.
investigate this one, but
100%.
hey, thanks for sticking around for the call.
100%.
Yeah, thanks for holding and staying on, and call back anytime.
Yeah, thanks for taking it. Have a good night. Hang
Likewise.
up, please.
All right, all right, all right, everyone. Thank you for listening and hanging out. I had a caller who was on the line, so I wanted to stick around for a couple more minutes. Someone here said that the last episode of Black Mirror has some Trump headwind predictive programming and a nuke. I'm not familiar with that, but we'll look at that. Again, we had a caller who was in Arkansas and got some Amber Alerts for the shooting at Mad Butcher. And they just announced a fourth victim in 4 dice. And the guy is 44 years old. So to answer the caller, maybe there's something to it. He's 44, 4 dice, 4 dead, after they originally reported 311, which they would do that if they're conveying a message. Just like the space junk dropped onto 311, finally hitting someone's house and creating a whole new scenario for us. So get your space helmets, mask up for chemtrails, get the umbrella for the solar simulator, and we'll talk soon. Link below if you want to get on the newsletter.
It's death to the bone.